Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenny Holroyd. I'm the Senior Sales Director here at Event Bank, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon as we present Bringing Your Communities Closer and how digital transformation can bring us all together with our panel discussion this afternoon. Before we go into that, I'd just like to give you a little bit of background in terms of EventBank, global company based out of the United States with a huge presence here across APAC. So we have offices here in Singapore, where my team and I are based, Indonesia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai, Manila, Africa, India. And basically we're an all-in-one event management and membership management software as a service platform. So we have two sides to our business. We service the large corporates like The Economist, Facebook, Deloitte, KPMG that utilize our platform to basically automate their event processes. And we also have a large part of our business which focuses on the non-profits and associations throughout the region. So our clients include organizations like the British Chamber of Commerce, American Chamber, New Zealand Chamber, Thai Chamber of Commerce, Singapore Retailers Association, Singapore Shipping Association, that basically utilize our platform because one, they are membership driven. So obviously they have a membership base, and off the back of that, obviously they run many events throughout the year. So the EventBank platform basically helps streamline and automate 80% of those processes. Over the last couple of months, obviously with COVID-19, obviously it's been a huge issue globally and also for our clients and organizations certainly that are membership or event driven have had huge impact, huge issues impacting on their business. So we've been working tirelessly. We did a partnership with Zoom, whereby our clients can now do a full integration to be able to manage their Zoom webinars from the EventBank platform. And in addition, we've also been listening to our communities and also been listening to our clients in terms of, in an area you know, and certainly an industry where, you know, people want to connect and obviously, you know, be able to, you know, attend exhibitions or have face-to-face meetings, whatever it may be. So, you know, as part of what our offering, what we've done is we've now, as part of our offering, have added a new solution to our service, which basically is enabling our clients to create and transform professional communities. So EventBank, as I mentioned, an all-in-one engagement platform. So here you can see we have event management, email campaigns, finance and payments, CRM, task management. Obviously, we have a number of apps for our clients, and also we allow our clients to be able to, you know, really deep dive in terms of metrics and analytics, in terms of the events that they're running. As I mentioned, we now have a community engagement solution, which basically enables organizations to basically run a community within the platform. So within there, we have a live feed. You're able to obviously, you know, to do comments and have a discussion, obviously within the platform. There's a member directory within there so that you can obviously reach out to other members that are part of the actual organization. Obviously social sharing, so whether that's Facebook, Twitter, WeChat, etc., and also making the announcements within the platform. Within there, you can also develop groups. So basically, whether it's a public or private group, obviously you can comment within the groups. You know, we've added some fun elements to that. So some emojis, you know, if you want to do a custom reaction or what have you, you can do within the actual community. And obviously, if you want to mention someone that's within that group, then obviously you can in terms of mentioning within there. In addition to that, in a world, you know, where we're struck with COVID-19, you know, gone are the days when I'm going to give you a nice business card, and obviously we're going to exchange business cards, you know, as we have done in the past. We've now added a functionality whereby, you know, I can actually share my business card virtually within the platform. Off the back of that, obviously, you know, in terms of from a privacy perspective, we're talking about GDPR and PDPA requirements, etc. You can obviously customize your privacy settings within there as well. So you are fully in control of what's happening within there. There's also direct messaging, so one-on-one direct chat. As I mentioned, things like GIFs and emojis that you can send through. And perhaps I want to send a file that I want to share. I can also do that in terms of from a media sharing perspective. And also I can share my location within there through the direct messaging app. I touched on earlier, obviously we've just done a partnership with Zoom, whereby now we have a web engagement solution whereby you can now run your virtual events as if it was a live event within the EventBank platform. Here you can see exactly how that looks within our solution. And again, within here, you can do things like, you know, access documents. There's attendee to attendee chat, business card exchange, and also I can see the agenda, obviously within there as well. As I mentioned, we're a global company. We've got offices in the States, Africa, India, Russia, China, and obviously throughout APAC. So, you know, if you need to reach out to us, please feel free to do so. Okay, then. So let's get on with the panel discussion. As you know, the world has changed over the last few months. And while organizations could do without technology before the whole COVID-19 pandemic happened, now technology and digitalization are a must-do that no organization can afford to ignore. Professional communities around the globe are struggling on how to provide value to their communities in this time of social distancing. Now more than ever, it's imperative that members of a community come together, connect, and engage to help one another. Today, we're going to hear from some of Asia Pacific's highly regarded leaders on how digital transformation can enable your community to thrive and be future ready. So without further ado, let's meet our panelists. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce Tony Braley, who is the CEO of the Australian Society of Association Executives. I'd also like to introduce Siobhan Das, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the American Malaysian Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Siobhan. I'd also like to introduce Tay Ling, who's the General Manager at Pico Group in Hong Kong. John Peacock, who's the Chief Executive Officer at the Associations Forum out of Australia. And finally, the CEO and co-founder of Eventbank, Eric Schmidt. Eric, over to you.
Great, thank you, Kenny, and thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon, morning, depending where you are around Asia. We would like to, first of all, jump in, and we appreciate all of our panelists for joining us today. We have a diverse group of people with backgrounds from different parts of the industry, but certainly experts themselves in building different kinds of communities. So today, of course, and again, we don't want to dig into too many conversations regarding specific things on the virus itself and whatnot, but again, obviously that will be part of our discussion today. Is of course, it is something that people are having to deal with on a daily basis. So knowing that, and of course, one thing I do want to mention to all the participants here is if you do have questions, feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we will be able to integrate some of those questions into our panel discussion today. So feel free, and again, if we can get it in while the panel's going, we will. Otherwise, if we hold it to the end for something that may not be directly part of the conversation, then we will also integrate that into what we will have today. So let's jump in and let's have a good conversation. So if we can first, again, you may or may not be familiar with some of our panelists today, but let's have a quick meet. And let's start with Siobhan. Just give us a quick idea of your organization, and then we'll go to John.
Great, thank you, Eric, and it's great to be here on this event here. AmCham Malaysia is a 40-year-old organization, 41 years old. We have about 270 corporate members, most of which we represent U.S. companies based in Malaysia. We're an independent organization. We don't get any assistance from government, but we are a very, very active business conduit representing our members to the local stakeholders as well as stakeholders back in the US, which is the corporate offices. Malaysia has been in one of the more severe lockdowns in the COVID crisis. We are starting to emerge from that. They're releasing businesses right now, but we are literally in that process going through. The digital platforms have become absolutely critical to what we try and do and need to do to enable the community. The membership that we have is spread across the entire country, so it's not centralized in one city. So we have a very large portion of our membership, almost 25% of our membership sitting up in Penang, and then the rest of it spread in the Klang Valley and the central area, and then the rest across the country. So I think this conversation right now is incredibly appropriate, and I'm really looking forward to hearing some of the issues and how people are tackling it. Thank you.
Thanks, Siobhan. John? Welcome.
Yeah, calling in from Sydney, Australia. Associations Forum is a network of 500 associations. We help associations with governance, constitutions, membership growth, and events through, and we deliver that knowledge through conferences, and if we all remember what they used to be like, and now a lot more online. We also have, we're quite, we do a lot of face-to-face consultancy with all our clients as well. Our motto is bringing associations together to boost performance, and we also believe that associations advance the world. So thanks, I'm looking forward to joining in on some discussions.
Great, thanks, John. Tony, welcome.
Hello, everybody, and it's really great to be here with you today. So I too am from Australia. I'm coming a little north of Australia than what John is from Brisbane. And our organisation, the Australasian Society of Association Executives, we are the peak not-for-profit body of those working in association and membership-based organisations. So our role is to help executives and people working in associations be the best that they can be, give them information around how to run great associations. And like many of you, most of our delivery is face-to-face. So one of our very key things that we provide is peer-to-peer networking. And that up until just very, very recently has been all face-to-face. We deliver, lots of events, lots of interaction with our members. And yes, like everybody else, we have had to very quickly look at what's important, engage the digital platforms, I guess, and learn about new technology very, very quickly to ensure that we're adding value to our members, but also, really helping them through these incredibly difficult times, which right now associations, in my opinion, particularly in Australia, are front and centre of what is happening, more broadly throughout the economy.
Great, thanks. And finally, Tay from Hong Kong.
Hi, so I'm from the Pickle Group. We have presence in 30 plus cities. And actually right now, this is our 51st anniversary this year. I think what is interesting for us is that we have traditionally been very well known for the very design and build kind of work that we do, but we've actually been transforming over the years to handle things that's a little bit more physical interaction. Obviously with COVID-19, what has happened is that we have all been doing a lot more virtual events, but I think the key and core of the crux of what we do is actually at the essence of it is about connecting brands to the community of the target audience that they actually have. And it's actually platform agnostic, right? So those are the kind of things that we do. And in recent times, we have actually been doing work for BMW, HP, Métis, Huawei, and such across the kind of things, delivering virtual events for them. So that's about it.
Awesome, thank you, and of course, welcome. So Siobhan, I'm going to open this up for a question to you at first. You know that you and I have been discussing communities for the last 12 years. And, if you can just lay the groundwork for how you think, about building communities and the different organizations that you've been a part of, and some of the strategies that you've brought to play previously, and how now you're thinking about that sort of shift moving forward.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, that's right. We've been having this conversation for over a decade. It's been a kind of a special sweet spot for me in when I was developing committees when I was in AmCham in Shanghai. Yeah, it really is kind of one of the, in a chamber and association, is how do we relate to the communities that we're touching, and how do you want to involve them in the work that your organization is doing? So in order for that organization to, especially membership organizations, in order for us to grow, we have to have a fundamental way of communicating with our members, with our community, and ensuring that communication pipeline, or that pathway, is as clear as possible, so that you can always leverage what they know in the field, which is always going to be more than what we know, and how do we actually express this and use the platform as an expression of what's happening with our members. And so, trying to give communities a sense of purpose and, coming together for a purpose is really important. The other thing I think I would like to say is also the sense of giving it an identity, getting them to understand that they actually belong to a group that has value as a group is something that is really, really important. And that's in the kind of purpose of the group serving a larger purpose. And I think we've worked over the years to try and to work on different ways of doing that, making it a safe space for people to interact. The challenge has always been to try and get competitors to come to the same table and share different viewpoints, and at the same time not give away trade secrets, and that balance and giving them the comfort that they can be that as expressive as they want to be, and find the commonalities. And I think that the community for us, at least for in a business organization, is understanding the commonalities and how do we leverage those commonalities to then make the platform much more robust and become purposeful for the larger community. So it's creating the small communities that serve purposes that then engage the larger community. And going back to when I first started, it boils down to two strategies that I've always lived with, which is, and they kind of chicken and egg. You can drive engagement and add value. And if you add value, you drive engagement. You just go back between the two, and you just raise the bar every single time that you keep going through those basic strategies. And they haven't changed since 2006 when I walked into this chamber world at all. That has not changed in one way, shape, or form.
That's great. And certainly, Tony, as you look at, again, obviously associations have a role where, it's obviously bringing professionals and their industries up. And certainly that element of community is extremely important to them being able to bridge that gap between what's going on. And for you all, how do you think about and try to, educate the organizations that are part of you to, contribute to building their communities to be stronger and better, and certainly, continuing to have an impact on whatever profession or industry that they're dealing with?
It's interesting, Eric. I mean, one of the biggest, one of the biggest questions that association leaders ask is what you were sort of saying, Siobhan, how do I add value? How do we remain relevant? And, to be quite honest, I think in some ways, you need to go back to basics and meet the community where they are. Sometimes, you have grand plans and where you think they should be, they actually are at a different space. So I think engaging communities where they are, recognizing that not all of your membership, all of your customer base, all of your clients are at the same space, I think, as well. And going back and just asking those questions. I think part of the engagement process is certainly asking questions, listening to the answers, and as an organization, having the tools, knowledge, and ability to respond to those questions. And going back to that adding value, I mean, if you're not, from a membership perspective, a membership organization, if you're not adding value, you're not going to be relevant. So, but you need to know what it is and how you solve those problems. What are the problems that your members need solving? That's kind of how we approach what we do.
Great. And one of the things that you said there, Tony, which is always a challenge for many organizations, is the listening part and trying to translate that into value that can be brought about to whoever is on the other end of that. Tay, you guys are obviously experts at this for obviously 51 years in different things that you all have been doing. As you think in working with your corporate customers, and again, corporate customers are trying to solve the same problem and bringing their customers together or potential customers and listening to, new ways to engage them. Sort of as we look forward here into the sort of post-COVID situation, as brands are trying to think about engagement and building communities, what are some of the sort of best practices that you're, having conversations on now, and how do you think that will continue to evolve over the coming months?
Yeah, I think what was very interesting is that COVID actually broke out in January early this year, and one of our clients, Huawei, actually reached out to us in the very early stages then, and to say that they're going to convert a physical event into an online space. So within a space of about 2 to 3 weeks, what we actually did was that we created a virtual event on a platform that allowed engagement to actually happen. So what we put into place was actually show production. We allow people to actually talk online and engage online, and they are able to see how a typical event of about 4 hours to 8 hours is now spread across 2 to 3 days in that sense. What we achieved in terms of results was actually astonishing. In a very typical event, you probably will be expecting about 2,000, 3,000 people max in China. For that particular event, we actually had 10,000 views. And that's exactly what the online space is able to do for you, right? You need to rethink your tactics of how you actually engage people. I think engagement in the online space, if I can link it to like watching a movie, right now it's actually really like you're facing a screen. You know, if the show production is good, the storyline is great. So that's content production that you're talking about. If the storyline is great, it has good music, it has good visuals, it has good audio. A person wouldn't want to leave his seat to go to the toilet, right? In that sense. But in an online space, that's exactly what you need to consider, where you need to think about how do you actually engage them from a motion graphics, from a content strategy point of view. How do you actually engage people such that they actually want to be interested in the content, that they'll be stuck to the screen, watching exactly what you're doing. And that's exactly what we've been doing across the clients that we've been working on at this moment.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Certainly organizations are changing and certainly looking for new ways to build their own communities. John, again, coming to you, you've been obviously working with many types of organizations over the time that your organization has existed. Obviously, a huge achievement there. For you, how and what challenges have you really seen in trying to build these communities? And again, as we look at what we're dealing with today, what do you think are some of the really big challenges that these organizations have to face and find solutions for as we move forward here?
Eric, one factor I think is human nature about whether someone is a joiner or someone is not. There are wonderful associations out there that obviously offer brilliant benefits, and the people who are working for organisations, associations, think why would they not join? But I look forward to a psychologist's report one day of the human of civilization to find out what percentage of people are joiners. Now, knowing that some people will always get involved enthusiastically and some people never will get involved, the challenge is to try and bring those people in the middle who aren't too sure about whether they want to get involved or not. We certainly find that one of the things about communities is that if you get them involved and they have a good impression, they will stay. And some people who were doubters become rusted on supporters. But that comes back to good marketing, good communications, because we have the best communities in the world. Some people just won't acknowledge. I guess the only community in the world that probably has one member that's not a member is the United Nations. I don't think North Korea is a member of that, but I think every other country is. But there's you've got to so that's an odd example, but you've got to always give people the reasons to join. You've got to convince them, and then once they're in, they will quite often stay. The hard thing is quite often getting them over the line to get involved in that community, whether that's the association or whether it's something online. The extra thing I'll say, Eric, is that those organisations who had existing communities are in a better situation now because they're able to say, well, we had our community, we miss seeing people, let's try and convert to an online one. So if you already had a community, it's there. But we see from Facebook and all the other platforms, there's plenty of new opportunities out there. And thank goodness we've got technology to enable us to have non-physical communities. So we thank the event banks of the world for giving us that opportunity to meet without being able to see each other in person.
And Siobhan, coming to you on that particular point, obviously places like Malaysia have been going through this transformation to digitization. How do you think that impacts some of the communities that exist in places like Malaysia who might not have been digitized prior to COVID and now really need to think about building a community and communicating much more online than they were in the past?
Hi, yes. I think this happened almost virtually within a week. I mean, overnight, Malaysia went into a massive lockdown and you couldn't leave. It was a very, very strict lockdown. And I think the technologies out there were explored and everybody really, really came to use and go to on digital platforms very quickly. Certainly on a working level, one community we had, which was in the manufacturing space, we ended up having, I mean, we would have online a whole, every day from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the evening, literally kind of crisis center call every single day. So that huge community was able to pull together and be very effective because we were able to get, I think at the one point, one call was about 110 people just with all, you know, all manners of issues that we had to evolve and solve. But I think people were able to get onto very fast. There are platforms, whether it's Zoom or WebEx, Microsoft Teams, BlueJeans, everybody was able to get onto those platforms. What came later, I think, was how did we try and track some of this? Will we be able to track who was actually on the calls? Other areas about engagement into our community. How did we convert some of those people who weren't necessarily members into becoming more engaged or becoming members, but also who were members who weren't engaged, as was previously mentioned to, I think John said, turning them from a passive member into an active member. How do we bring that along? And I think the digitization and going into a platform has allowed us that opportunity to be relevant to segments in our memberships that are maybe less likely to come out to a physical event. So they now see a different side of the organization that they belong to, and they're much more able to participate. You know, and I think that the usage and the people that you said who are doers and kind of come into that play is a bit like what I say. If you join a golf club or a tennis club or a swimming club, unless you get into the pool and get wet, your swimming's not going to get any better. So the adoption of, you know, why you join an organization is about whether you want to put that piece of effort into becoming a part of the value proposition. And so I think the digital space, certainly in Malaysia, it's you know, I think people are exploring different platforms, but it's there.
That's great. Tony, you know, as you look at any organization who may be trying to rethink the way that they've been engaging with their community, what are some of the strategies that you would recommend to people as they rethink things and, you know, whatever is next?
I've been saying this a lot lately, Eric, but I do think the back to basics thing. I think we have, you know, apart from the terrible situation that globally, you know, that COVID-19 has had, it's also provided us with an opportunity to do exactly that, to rethink. So it's actually given us an opportunity, you know, all organisations, because we've literally were stopped from doing what we were doing. It's actually given us an opportunity to go, okay, so what do I restart? Similar to the way really governments are looking at opening up, you know, parts of the economy. What do we restart? What is important? And what can we sunset? You know, what can we actually put down? It could be an event, it could be a resource, it could be anything. But what were those things that we could actually put away now because we realized that we don't really need them anymore? And I think that, you know, it doesn't matter what part of your business that is, that goes for events too. You know, a lot of us, whilst we said that we do events and we do them because our members love them and people love seeing each other, do they? You know, are we just trotting out the same old events because that's what we've always done? So I think, you know, having an opportunity to really look at the strategy of the why. Why are we doing this? What outcome are we trying to achieve? I think that's actually the great opportunity that people have here, is whilst we are a little bit, you know, we've had, I guess, the brakes put on us a little bit from a business perspective, and I'm not saying we're not busy, because we're all very busy, but I think it is giving us the opportunity to really look at the overall strategy of the why of whatever product and service that you're delivering, and making sure that it's still relevant to the community that you're delivering it to.
Yeah, this has come up a couple of times where we talked about this concept of killing the sacred cows that may have been around for a very long period of time, but nobody really wanted to touch it because maybe it was a board member's project or somebody in the organization really felt passionate about it. But this is the time to actually go back and rethink, does it make sense? And is this part of our mission? And is this what we're trying to do to, recruit new members or, bring new clients on board? And certainly people hopefully are having those conversations right now to reevaluate at a board level, and certainly at a organization management level, what's necessary and what's not. Tate, again, going back to a little bit, because we have some questions here, as it relates to online events, as you guys have obviously been looking at this since the beginning of the year, different organizations have tried different things as it relates to virtual events. What have you seen working successfully, and not, on the other hand, that have been, working well as it relates to that engagement, and really trying to drive people's, I would say, post-event happiness with the brand or with whatever the organization is trying to achieve?
I think the key is that across the topics that across the conversations that we've been having with our clients, a lot of them has been talking about, are we able to convert a physical event into either a hybrid or online event? I feel that very often the starting point was a little bit off tangent. So what do I mean by that is that they looked at, if I'm having a current exhibition now, so in the current exhibition, they'll be walking into a venue, and in that venue, I would want them to go through 3,000 or 300 exhibition booth, and with that, they're able to network and so on and so forth. But that, in terms of experience in the online space, imagine if you have to click through 300 web pages of booths, right? I think anyone would have given that up. So what's important is that you actually need to start rethinking about the experience that you want to do, because that's the only way that you can then connect the community and to get them to stay engaged. So just to give a very simple example, and I saw the question in the Q&A earlier, where there was a comment about how do you actually create, for example, award ceremony, right, of sort. So in terms of award ceremony, how people would probably be thinking about, and there's been comments that clients have asked us to do, is that, we are doing a virtual award ceremony. Now I would like it to be broadcast live onto Facebook. And what's going to happen is that we'll do it in a webinar format where somebody will actually appear on screen and smile and say a couple of words. Is that extremely engaging? Maybe not. So what we actually did is that we actually suggested to the client that, what if you're able to create a photorealistic avatar, right? Where this person now is being able to engage online in a virtual space. He gets brought through and he actually walks down a virtual aisle. And at the end of the virtual aisle, he'll be doing a handshake with a particular celebrity or CEO, whoever the guest of honor is. And at the end of that, after collecting the gift, on screen behind him, you can actually see a webinar of a speech that he's currently making live right now from exactly where he is. Then that becomes content that becomes extremely shareable. And this is then a video that you can even share on your Facebook and so on and so forth. So what then ties that all together is actually a platform that's able to integrate it of sort. And I think that's really what we do, where we actually rethink a lot about how can the engagement be totally different, because you want the community to actually be interested, to want to actually be part of that whole entire journey of sort. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, so go ahead.
Well, Eric, I just wanted to interject there. I think what Teus is saying is really, really interesting, because especially in the larger space of virtual meetings, exhibitions especially. Content is king. And we have to up our game in the content delivery, the why and what we're delivering as well. The platforms give us the opportunity to make it larger and bigger, and because we don't have to fly physical people in, it makes accessibility a lot easier to try and get that guest to come and be part of your event. I do think that technology is going to play, especially in exhibitions, going to be really interesting to see how virtual reality comes into this, where you can actually do a walkthrough of what Tay was starting to see, a virtual exhibition. And, in pushing forward the idea of, you can identify other people in the same room and engage in a conversation with them about whatever is in front of you. So it may be a few days away, given by the rapidity of how technology is growing. But I see, especially in the larger exhibition space, the larger conference space, that could be a possibility where you're in that space. You choose to go into a room, which room it is, but the avatars or the people that you can see are sitting with you.
Yeah, sorry. I'd like to actually jump in here as well. I think one of the key things that we were actually talking to a client, which I thought was very interesting and touching exactly on the point that Subhas has actually mentioned earlier. Our client was actually talking about having a physical exhibition, right? A IP exhibition for BBC Earth that's supposed to be happening in September this year. And because of the COVID situation and because of the global travel ban, the exhibition then has to be postponed to June next year. But what was interesting is that we actually told the client, what if we are not able to create a virtual reality experience, right? And we do a drop ship tactic where we can actually do a sponsorship deal with a particular VR goggles brand and let people go online and purchase various kind of ticketed sales. So for example, if I already have a VR goggles of my own. So what I can do is that I just participate in that journey, which is probably about 20 minutes, and I pay maybe X dollar. If I actually want to be able to experience the journey, but I do not actually have a VR goggles, then I could be paying a Y dollar, which is a little bit more. And the goggles, VR goggles could be sanitized and be shipped over to my place, be with me for about a week, and then it's collected back again. And that's where it actually creates product experience as well. So it's not just about selling a particular experience journey. It's also about selling product experience, and then that's where you go into your sponsorship deals. And in that whole entire journey where it's ticketed, where people can actually purchase the VR goggles or to go through the whole entire exhibition, then that becomes a marketing tactic that actually leads to your whole actual precursor to your actual physical exhibition. So when we were actually discussing that with the client thought that it was actually a decent, strong business case, and that's how actually we started reimagining a lot of experiences for the physical space. Yeah.
John, do you have something to add to that?
Do you sit tight and wait out 2020 and hope that things become clear and easy in 2021, or do you invest? That's one of the hardest things to say about whether do we engage a professional group like Pico to help us, or arrange it ourselves, or use Eventbank technology or things like that, because there are some organisations that are there are some huge organisations who really need to get their communities together, and they are going down, and they are financially well-resourced ones, because some associations are quite rich, and they are able to make that big dollar investment. But there are others who say, well, it's not going to happen. We'll go fishing for the rest of the year. Unfortunately, I think for many of us, we've been as busy as ever, but not making any money. But reality is that you've got to decide whether you really want to go down this path. We've started small, like everyone else. We've gone from having a webinar once a month to 3 a week at our peak, I guess. So we've all been very busy, and we're learning all the time. But you don't have to. I think my comment is, don't rush necessarily into translating a major event online, because it may not work. And people may say, well, we'll see you next year. And we're sorry, look at the Olympic Games. They're not going to be this year, but they'll be next year.
Tay?
Yeah, I think what John has mentioned is actually exactly what we have experienced with our clients, right? A lot of clients keep telling us that, look, we are not making a lot of money. We're busy like hell, right? But at the same time, we actually don't have any money to spend. And I think the key thing that what we have approached in terms of the work that we do is that actually we start working out a business case for them. So we start looking at, okay, if this is something that's worth an investment and for you to do, it's not just a case about building community, because that's just outreach, right? But the community needs to, in the end, be able to deliver business outcome for you, because that's what all of us are actually being judged by, right? In that sense. So if we're going to create a particular event and we're going to do a certain form of investment, then the whole entire business study of what's the ROI that we can actually look up to, such that in the end, the amount of dollar that you're spending can actually result in a bigger amount of returns that you're looking for. And I mean, just as exactly like what you've mentioned, some of the key, most common things that we've been doing for our clients is actually right now webinars, right? And in terms of webinars, because it's the best lead generation method that they have, and it's cost effective, it's easy, and people can do 3 to 5 times a week. So those, I mean, I think there's really different ways of skinning a cat in that sense, right? And it's really in terms of what's the business outcome that you're looking for.
Javon, you know, for you guys, what has been working most for you? And I guess, you know, if you look at that question of monetization, have you guys cracked that egg yet?
Short answer, no. We haven't cracked that egg yet. We're again, as I said, we're just coming out of it. We've been really busy trying to just deal with the issues on the ground. We are aware of looking at, you know, different ways of trying to figure out how to monetize it in the network of AmChams around the region. I know that some of the other AmChams, what we've had our group conversations, have found ways of monetizing the actual ticket sales. But from what I've gathered is that you almost need double to triple the audience that you would normally have to make a third or a half of what you actually used to bring in. And that's being in a very rosy picture on a traditional webinar event where you just charge an entry fee to the event. I mean, I think down the line you'd be looking at trying to figure out how to involve sponsorships into webinars and working with partners. But no, I mean, I think the road ahead on monetization is going to be very, very hard. I mean, it used to account for almost, I would say, a third of our income. So now we've got to rethink about what that income is going to be and make some changes. I mean, as I said, I've always been wondering, how do chambers work in the 21st century? These are things that, you know, were born along the canals of along the tributary of the Thames, and you know, they were you know, groups of traders who came together. And it was very much about connecting with people. And what does that mean in the 21st century, where our community is not just the immediate physical place that you're living in, but a much wider scape where, you know, now that I've met you, Tony, Tay, John, Kenny, you're all part of my community now. So how do I bring you guys into that community? And my community is now much, much larger. So while being a single chamber, we're also part of a larger organization called the American Chamber, the AmChams of Asia Pacific, and that's 28 chambers, loosely come together. It's not, you know, it's not a formal organization in the sense, but we come together on a regular basis. So that's another larger community, and that spreads everywhere from, I think, Kazakhstan all the way down to New Zealand. And you know, it's massive. So how do you bring that together, and how do we find different ways of helping each other monetize, give ideas about how you can develop larger ways of sponsorship? And you know, but again, it's driven by content. You know, I think I'm being challenged by my earlier background is in film and television, and I'm trying to remember way back when, how do you deliver that visual content that you need right now to keep people engaged, you know, to keep the eyes on the screen, and convert it to something that's more meaningful, that I now feel I'm comfortable enough to, you know, drop John an email and start an individual conversation with him.
as a follow-up to that, Siobhan, as you look at everything you just talked about, how do you measure success?
Yeah, greater engagement. I mean, basically, it's whether or not your community is engaged with you, whether they're giving you what you need and they're getting what they need from us. Very hard. It's one of the, you know, it took me three years, I think, when we first started this down the trip of engagement. As you know, I'm a big, I want to score everything. If I can figure out how to score everything, I'll figure out an engagement score. But it's hard. I mean, basically right now it's not a science. It's a bit of an art form. But it's really what the feedback of what people are doing. How many people come to you? We were irrelevant in the middle of the MCO, and we had a massive boost in membership. Do I expect that membership to carry on and stay with us over the years? They're going to be the measure. It's going to be a measure of whether the people that came on board in that 1 month, I get to keep them for the next 3 to 4 to 5 and not longer years. So that's a longer term measure. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the situation, what it is. Each measure is going to be slightly different for each community.
Tony, how do you measure success in this new environment?
I think John's trying to say something.
We'll come to him next. Tony?
He likes it when I'm muted. How do we measure success? Look, I think this concept of engagement, you know, I think nearly every association has said, we've got all this more engagement, you know, everybody wants us. I think it's an interesting question because I think you're right, Siobhan. If we manage to find some sort of, you know, perfect science with this, we would probably make a lot of money. But that's not what we're all about, right? But for me, I guess, you know, the nuance of running an association is we get a test once a year, don't we, with our renewals? I mean, that essentially is the big test that we get. It's one of those funny things with associations that we keep asking customers to be customers once a year and pay for that. But look, we've tried to start to measure both, I guess, what we're getting with our digital engagement as opposed to what we were getting with our face-to-face engagement, trying to overlay those two things a little bit. But then, you know, sometimes I think also we forget that people also read content and digest content, and they don't necessarily need to be on a webinar or at an event to actually feel that they're part of the community as well. So I think you can't forget about that bit. I think we're all very, very focused at the moment of getting online and making sure that everybody's seeing one another. I think you also have to remember that, you know, engagement runs deeper for different people, and we need to keep our eye on that as well. So short answer, Eric, we've got a bit of a botched way of measuring engagement. But I think for people out there, as long as you're actually thinking about measuring it, or, you know, having some sort of concept that you know you need to measure it, I think you're actually streets ahead of other people as well. It doesn't need to be fancy. I think, you know, having some sort of, you know, conscious thoughts around, well, is this working? And what do we think we can point to? I think that's, you know, I think that's a really good start.
Great, John. You wanted to add something there. We'll help unmute you so you can talk.
I think I've not figured out how to do it. Thank you, Eric. What Siobhan and Tony are saying about engagement is very important, because engagement is you've got to be in a community is one thing, and the second thing is engaging with people. But we have to keep everyone happy. Make them feel that our communities, or our customers, if you're a corporate, it's our customers, make them feel that we're there for them at these difficult times, and that when we figure out whether we're going to run an online event or whether we're going to postpone something till next year and just put on smaller webinars, we're there for them. I think this is a great opportunity when people aren't rushing to catch aeroplanes around the place, or being on fast trains in Japan or China, to people, it's actually quite easy to catch. It might be easy to catch people. So you've got to be using this time to make sure that we're really back in touch with our sectors and our people. You can measure that by finding out what is the average. If you've got the right technology, such as Event Bank, you can have the right technology to measure when were we last in touch with people. That's all the CRM thing. There's a lot of goodwill at the moment in terms of what we are doing, and so we make the most of it. Get in touch with people. People are very forgiving at the moment, and they will give you all the feedback in the world. And people are going to be more open to your organisations now than they ever were.
Tay?
Hi, I'm also learning how to unmute as I went. Yeah, okay, I think the key thing is that I'm actually going to shift a little, and I'm going to touch a little bit more in terms of how can we actually monetize and create a virtual environment instead. So I'm just going to use a very simple example. One of the first virtual events that was conducted in Hong Kong was actually a career fair by HKSTP. Right, so if you look at a very typical career fair that's conducted, what they will do is that there's a platform, people will register, they go onto the platform, and then they're able to attend certain keynote addresses and subsequently be able to look at the booths of who is exhibiting there. And if you look at it from that point of view, such a typical event, generally attendance is free. It's also a case in which how organizers are able to charge perhaps a small fraction of what they used to be able to charge for the virtual booth, because obviously there's no more design and build that's there. And if you look at it from a reimagination point of view, whether it is conducted at a particular venue location, whether it's like a hotel or at an exhibition hall, the website is actually a venue by itself, right? And what if we are able to then turn this website and this platform and this venue into one that's open 24/7, because that's essentially what the internet is able to do. And when that's going to happen, instead of it being a career fair, are we able to turn it into a career world, where it's a place where you are constantly able to start looking for a job and switch locations, switch industries, whether you're a mid-career switcher or whether you're a fresh grad or whether you're somebody who's been working for many years. That become your platform, your go-to platform that you want to do. And that's essentially what you're trying to do, which is building the community, right? And then that's how you start monetizing it, because the moment you're able to build that platform that people wants to be in it, then that's how you can start charging people that, look, this is what you can actually be doing. And you go on a subscription-based model, right? So on a monthly basis, this is X amount of money that you need to pay. And from there, you are able to organize X number of exhibitions and so on and so forth for your own personal outreach. And this is actually the way in which how I would suggest that in the digital space, really it's a lot about reimagination, right? Understand that the platforms, actually, all of them have different functionalities. The functionalities allow you to engage people in a particular manner, but you need to understand the functionalities, and I think that's what us at Pico actually do, because we actually help people to understand the functionalities and how does that functionalities work in a particular manner to be able to engage your audience, such that at the end of it, you are still able to achieve business outcomes across all the things that you're doing. Yeah.
So Tay, actually, I guess a follow-on question to that, because obviously, budget is a key aspect to what people can achieve and obviously accomplish with based on how much money they have. Huawei and in an expo is probably spending $1 million on a booth previously. Now, getting that budget to be reallocated to another direction might be a little bit of a challenge. But if you're thinking about budget and certainly the options that people have, how are you working with clients to think about that as certainly a still getting to the result, but different options that exist for them?
I think the key thing that clients need to be able to understand is that just like in the physical space, you have your 3x3 booth, and you can actually create a special design booth, right? And each of them have different kind of cost that goes into it. each of these booths actually creates a different kind of impression that you actually create on your target audience. So on the online space, this booth are actually all just 2D renderings, if you look at it in that sense. What actually differs and changes a lot is actually the user experience, the user interface, and the kind of functionalities that actually you have in that sense. So the more functionalities that you want, right, and the more live interaction that you need, that will definitely drive costs up. So for example, if you're talking about a particular booth where you actually have a text chat function, that's probably going to cost you $X in that sense. But that text chat function can easily be changed into an email form, inquiry form function, right? And the email inquiry form function is probably at a fraction of the cost, because that's not something that's difficult to build. It's actually something that's very easy to build on online space. And that's something that actually across all developers or across all platforms is actually something that's quite easy to be done. I think the key thing is that you need to be able to know, first and foremost, what's the outcome that you're looking for. I think when you actually create a virtual event, you're actually trying to potentially get certain leads, you're trying to get certain engagement and such. Once you're able to decide that, I think us at Pico, we're able to build the user journey for you and look at your assets that you have, such that it actually is cost effective. It can actually achieve what you're looking for, and it can be a great way of getting the community to be engaged.
Great. Siobhan, there's another question here that a couple people have had as it relates to the networking element that exists in an offline event, but maybe not so much in a virtual world. And obviously for a chamber, that's an important aspect of bringing those folks together who can do business together potentially. What are you doing to try to still keep people coming together and have that opportunity to do business through what the chamber is organizing?
I think one of the things that I want to pick up on something that Tony said earlier, that engagement level in order to network, you've got to find ways for people to meet in some way, shape, or form, virtually or so that if they're comfortable enough to pick up the phone and have that conversation and bring it down to where you can actually negotiate or build something out of it. And I think we've been talking very much about the platforms and webinars and areas like that, but I want to bring it back to a couple of other things that I want to touch on. Firstly, what Tony said about other platforms. There are other things that we're doing to drive that networking and drive that engagement. And for us, for example, and I'm sure every single association has done this, we delivered an almost daily newsletter to our members, which have been a huge hit. As something that we never thought of doing ever. We didn't want to do a publication. Everybody kind of, but every day it seems that we have enough content that we can reach our entire membership. And it's been one of the best compliments, the most compliments we've received is that they felt that they were kept in touch with with our chamber because not of a webinar that we were doing, but because they heard from us daily with content that mattered to them. And so therefore, and I don't know, I haven't looked at the numbers, whether that's driven traffic back to the website, but it's not relevant to me. The fact that they found the daily newsletters relevant was another way of engagement, and it's not the webinar, because I think we're getting hung up on replicating events when we're much more than just an event. And I think looking at those platforms, whether it's a newsletter, one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is how do you use video? And we've got other platforms like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, what are the new ones right now? TikTok, all the ones that we should be utilizing in different forms to drive that networking, that engagement, so that people come to network to meet the CEO of a company, to understand what their perspective on life is. So why don't we capture that in a video and put it in? It may be a 1-minute video. Why can't we just capture that 1-minute piece and establish almost a whole library of these communication pieces, these 1-minute discussion points on particular subjects, which is why I said it was really scary, because my background's in film and television. I'm having to remember how to do this now. But that's its content. So how do we use the platform and evolve it, not just as an event space, but how do we then take it into video logs, using that and putting it out into places where people you can then gain additional membership by using, say, LinkedIn, and getting and widening your reach. Ultimately, it's a marketing tool, right? You want to be able to identify with your brand, and you want to be able to reach out to your members, and you want to take that beyond your shores so that you can get a further reach. So it's frequency and reach, goes back to the old marketing adage. How do I get out there? How do people network? And if I know I can reach those people, then people are going to come and belong to me so that they can be touchstones. We are a strong touch point for that network. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely. Very good points. John, I think I see you shaking your head there. Let's come over to you.
I need to depart a little early, if you don't mind, and I apologise, but I would like to say something that is a little bit optimistic, which is that my father was born in 1921 and my mother was born a few years later. And when I was growing up, we didn't hear about the Spanish flu, and even for older members of the family, it's not something they talked about because the world adjusted. So I think in context, I'm relatively optimistic about the fact that we will adjust. I think the tragedy of all of this is the income lost for developing nations. That's the thing that particularly is hard. Rich associations in rich countries will do fine. But I think that we will get over this, but it's a time to adapt, and we are very, and I guess we are very thankful for technology enabling us to be able to chat today and things like this, and for products such as EventBank and other things, and professionals such as Taze Group to be able to help us do things in different ways. So just a final note, that was just a bit optimistic, and I apologise, I need to leave a little early.
No, that's fine. We were actually over time, but the discussion has been going so well that we let it run over a few minutes here. So, I like that. Easy to see.
One question I had, Eric, before we go, just an idea to how do you make this more relevant? You have a list of question and answers here, ones that are about 8 questions or 10 questions. Yep. Maybe the engagement is that you post those questions after the event and people can answer them. So they can so that the people who are online can get answers from other people around the world, so it's almost like a conversation you can have post-event. I've always struggled with post-event relevance. Like, how do you take, you send somebody to a conference, you spend $5,000 sending them to the conference, but they bring nothing back or they bring 10% back of what their experience was into the organization. So here you have an opportunity with these questions that are there. I haven't had a chance to look at them, but I think all the panelists would be happy to jot a note or two down, or people who are actually in the conversation, the 90, I don't know how many people you have online, you said 300. So, they may have ideas. So going beyond the event, and how do you extend that? And that's a piece of networking. That's important.
Absolutely. And that's, again, going, obviously to what we've been working on as EventBank, directly into the webinar engagement solution that, that we've been developing for the past couple months to solve that exact problem. So people can go beyond the event to facilitate conversations, and of course the networking aspect, which I think is a segue into the final piece of what we like to show people, is the quick video on our webinar engagement solution. So, like I said, we're a little bit over time, but I appreciate everybody's time this afternoon and morning, depending where people are. Again, we will make sure that again, the questions. Thank you, Siobhan, for the suggestion. Get distributed, and in the last couple of events, we've been distributing a white paper that sort of compiles the information from the event. And if you do receive a survey that will be sent out after the event, there will be some questions asked to gather some information, some statistics, and then we will share that with all the participants who joined us here today. So thank you, Tay, Tony, Siobhan, and we thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you again in person soon, somewhere.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.